A game doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult one for a large number of players to suck at them, especially when they're trying them, or games of their kind, for the first time ever. Playing more and more lets you understand the core loop and central pattern governing the gameplay, allowing you to become better at those games. But things might not necessarily go so well in your earlier hours. Here, we're going to talk about a few such games. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. To be honest, many people are bad at Sekiro even after having put dozens of hours into the game, but even experienced veterans had a pretty rough time with it in their earlier hours. Sekiro requires precise timing and demands that you learn your enemy's movement patterns and attacks, which of course requires patience. Getting all of that down perfectly as you begin playing the game is kind of an impossible task. Crash Bandicoot 4: It's About Time. In a genre that is as accessible as platformers are, you don't expect a massively popular franchise like Crash Bandicoot to put up too much of a challenge. But like the classic Crash games it follows up on, Crash Bandicoot 4 is all about that old school level of difficulty. Precise jumps, smartly attacking or avoiding enemies, and timed movements to avoid hazards are a must while playing this game. And those who are looking to rush through it and aren't expecting much of a challenge will be surprised by the amount of resistance that they face. Viewtiful Joe. Viewtiful Joe is all about precise and stylish action, about dodging and counterattacking with the right timing, about juggling multiple enemies at the same time. There's a very specific flow to the combat in Viewtiful Joe, and though it's what makes this game so damn good, it's also something that might intimidate newcomers, especially in the opening couple of hours. Shinobi, 2002. Shinobi's PS2 release from 2002 is a classic hard-boiled character action game that will put your skills to the test like few other games do. Games like Ninja Gaiden have always been about the challenge, especially the former, and Shinobi is very much in that category as well. The more you play, the more comfortable you get with its core loop, but even veterans will find themselves coming up against a brick wall during its infamous final boss fight. Forza Motorsport 7. This might not apply to you if you've been playing racing sims for a while, but for those that tried their hand at the genre for the first time with Forza Motorsport 7, it must have been quite a shock to experience its style of racing. With an almost complete focus on realistic physics, deliberate handling, and management of speed depending on the layout of the courses, getting started in Forza Motorsport 7 must have been a bit bumpy for genre newcomers. Rocket League. Here's the thing about Rocket League. Even if you suck at it, there's no way you're not having fun. At the same time though, when you first start playing it, you will be bad at it. Maneuvering the fast-moving cars in Rocket League with their jumps and twists and flips is something that requires a lot of skill, and balancing that with things such as gathering boosts and actually being able to hit the ball the way that you want to hit it is far from an easy task for beginners. Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy came out in the early years of the indie gaming boom and delivered a classic nostalgia-infused platformer. So how exactly did it do that? Well, it did it by emphasizing player skill more than anything else, in an experience that could be extremely frustrating at times, in the best way possible. Every single screen in the platformer is full of death traps and devious challenges, and navigating around them with Meat Boy's precise movements is as fun as it is hard. Ninja Gaiden Black. Even some hardcore Ninja Gaiden fanatics who have put hundreds of hours into the series will tell you that Ninja Gaiden Black was an extremely difficult game. In true character action fashion, combat punished players who thought wailing on enemies with button mashing would get them anywhere, instead demanding precise execution of attacks and combos against varying enemies who always knew how to put up a fight. Demon's Souls 2009. Demon's Souls launched on the PS3 at a time when hyperlinear games with excessive handholding had become a norm in this industry. As such, the refreshingly difficult From Software title must have been quite an adjustment for many. There were very few checkpoints, a complete lack of handholding meant players could easily get lost, combat demanded patience and precision, and bosses were terrifyingly challenging foes. As the first game of its kind, it delivered a level of difficulty that many had simply never experienced before. Hollow Knight. If you go into Hollow Knight completely blind, you'll be shocked by how challenging it can be, with any number of things providing startling levels of difficulty in the opening couple of hours. A large, labyrinthine map with almost zero guidance. Check. A vast and varied pool of enemies, each of whom can easily slaughter you in a number of different ways. Check. Dark Souls-inspired corpse run and checkpoint mechanics to drive up the difficulty even further. Grueling boss fights. Intricately crafted platforming challenges that require deft skill and timing. Check, check, and check. Elite Dangerous. Given Elite Dangerous's nature as a sandbox title where you can do whatever the hell you want, have zero guidance to rely on, and have mountains of intricate mechanics to learn, all of which are thrown at you right at the beginning, it's understandable that most newcomers are easily intimidated by this game. That said, as players who have poured thousands of hours into the game, of which there are many, would tell you, it's not so much about difficulty as it is about finding something in the game that you find fun in the beginning, latching onto it, and then using that as a springboard to dive headfirst into this ridiculously massive experience. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. We could have gone with pretty much any Donkey Kong Country game for the purposes of this list, but let's go with the most recent one. Tropical Freeze, like its predecessors, is a game that doesn't shy away from challenging its players every step of the way. Its dynamic and fast-moving levels constantly keep coming up with new ways to stump the player, from groups of enemies arranged in tricky ways to obstacle courses that require a series of precise jumps and maneuvers. If you're coming to Tropical Freeze from something like, say, New Super Mario Bros., be prepared for a culture shock. Celeste. Celeste offers a platforming experience that is actually quite similar to Super Meat Boy, at least mechanically speaking. The game constantly throws you into screens and levels full of hazards and traps and deadly obstacles, all of which must have been quite a shock for those who were expecting a fun, leisurely platformer. That said, thanks to the tight and precise platforming in the game, even in spite of all the challenges, there are hardly any moments where you feel like the game is being unfair. CUPHEAD. CUPHEAD is not an easy game by any means, but though you can definitely master its grueling challenge and get through its more memorable boss fights with time, it's hard to imagine anybody's first few minutes with the game not being an absolute disaster. Enemies come aplenty, they attack constantly, and they hit hard, and gathering the required level of skill and dexterity to overcome that challenge can present surprising hurdles at first. Just about any fighting game. This goes without saying, but this applies only to those who are playing a fighting game for the first time ever, especially if you're playing it competitively. Learning combos and executing them in perfect rhythm is a big part of being good at any fighting game on any level that matters, and that's something that can be incredibly overwhelming for newcomers. Of course, once you do get the hang of it, there's nothing else quite like it, so we can't say it's not worth your time. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.